Thank you again for joining me on another session of Broken to Beautiful. Wow, today's topic deals with, it says worthless to worthy. And we're going to jump right in on that because I needed for persons, because I had a few messages, one person was like, what do you mean worthless? No one's worthless. But I wasn't saying that, but let's go into the topic. A lot of the times we end up in situations and they do not turn out the way that we anticipate. We're left feeling hurt, we're left feeling broken. And what we feel sometimes, what some persons feel sometimes, is a sense of worthlessness. Or they feel as if nothing works out, there's no purpose, they can't find their way, and they don't know one step in how to put one's foot in front of another, what's the next step, and they see everybody else doing their thing, going along with life, and they feel in their corner that somehow there's no worth to them. The persons that they would have invested their time in, the situations that they would have given of themselves to, all of a sudden nothing is working out, and they're left hurt and they're left broken. And sometimes in our lives, situations can make us feel that way. Situations can make us feel broken, hurt, as if somehow we are not, there's no worth to us. But that's all about perspective, and we are going to see that today. It's all about how you view yourself. Are you viewing, did somebody tell you that? Is that the reason why you have these feelings that, you know what, I can't begin to see what my value is, I cannot begin to see what my worth is? Is it that someone told you, look, you're good for nothing? I've heard people tell people that you're good for nothing but to be a thief, you're good for nothing. I'm like, what do you mean they're good for nothing? Everybody is good for something, and I am even going to share this story. I spoke to someone yesterday, to a gentleman yesterday, and he has a child that is mentally challenged. And he was telling me how it is a rare disorder, and that child is being looked at, and they're taking his progress and charting everything that's going on with his child, so that they in turn can help other children, because they had not come across anyone else with that particular disorder. And I turned to him and I said, that is why sometimes when we think that things are, there's no good in it, when the rest of the world is telling us, oh, that's going to be hard, how you're going to raise a disabled child, that's going to be expensive, it's going to be challenging, and it might be. But here now is this child who can then, the information gathered from his life, from him being here, can help others, can contribute to medical science. That is phenomenal. Sometimes we think that the tough things we have been through, the madness that surrounds us, that we cannot find any worth in it or in ourselves as a result of what has happened. Maybe people are telling you, look, you'll never amount to anything. If I had $1 for every time I was told that, my goodness, I could have quite a bit of dollars in the bank, as a matter of fact. For every time I was told I was dumb or stupid, if I had believed that, where would I be? Dumb, stupid people do not go on to graduate top of their class, and they're not able to reason, to help others, and to be intuitive. So if you are accepting the labels that somebody else placed on you, then you have a sense of worthlessness that settles in. If you are thinking, look, I have tried this relationship, been here, done that, and you think that those experiences mean that there's nothing good inside of you, then that sense of worthlessness tends to settle in. And that is why I said we can go from worthless to worthy. It is not that you are worthless, it is that we perceive ourselves this way because of other people's labels or because of the experiences that we would have been through. And it is time for us to realize that the one, two, three things that define that we would have gone through do not define the entirety of who we are as individual. An experience that you had does not detract from the innate value that has been wired into your very being. So we can go from our places of feeling worthless to knowing, to not feeling worthy, to knowing that we are worthy. Because there is a difference between I feeling like I am worthy and knowing that I am. And that is what I wanted to emphasize today. And the thing is, there are some things we do that re-emphasizes or create this environment and the perception in us of that we are somehow worthless. And if we are saying hurtful things to ourselves, sometimes we hit our foot on something, and the first thing that comes out of my mind is, you're so stupid, what's wrong with you? You didn't see that there? Or sometimes we get into a relationship, we have friends, they betray us, and you go like, man, you do this again, you don't learn. And you know, people tell themselves, you're so fat and you're ugly. And the things I've heard people say to themselves at a simple mistake, at some error that they made, at some situation where they've been hurt. We say hurtful things to ourselves all the time, and that re-emphasizes that sense of worthlessness. And that is something you need to pay attention to. What is it you are telling yourself about yourself? Another thing that we tend to do is compare. When we start to compare ourselves to others, the thing about comparison is the individual that we are looking at, chances are their life is not as perfect as we think it is. It is not as altogether. Everybody has their crap. Everybody make mistakes. Everybody have their flaws and their shortcomings. A lot of the times we look at people and we exalt them to such a level, and we just see, oh, they're always well put together. Oh, they're always dressed so nice. Their hair always looks so good. Oh, they wear these nice clothes. Oh, they're always eating at this nice restaurant. They drive a good car. They live in this house. They have that job. You have no idea what it may have cost them. And I'm not just talking about financially. You have no idea what it may have cost them of themselves, their inner person, to get to where they're at. And you do not know behind the walls of the fancy house how hurt they are, that they may feel lonely. You have no idea that maybe all the nice clothes is just an outer shell, that inside that person is just longing for a good friend who they could talk to, somebody they could really connect with, somebody who they could take all of that off and they know they won't be judged. We start comparing ourselves to ideals that do not exist, that are not real. And then we beat up on ourselves when we do not reach these standards. And we need to stop it, because it just fosters this environment of worthlessness. Another thing that we do is that if you're longing to be somebody else, if you're always dreaming of some life that is not your own, like you want to be that person, you want to live that life, and it becomes envious, and it starts to really, it starts to really just got you going and going, and you can't seem to escape it. You are re-emphasizing your environment of worthlessness. It is what goes on with us inside here when we are comparing ourselves to others, when we set these standards that are not real, and we beat up on ourselves, we say mean and nasty things to ourselves. That's when we know we are creating an area of an environment of worthlessness where we feel like we are worthless. It doesn't mean that you are, but it's the feeling, it's the environment for your existence that you have created. When you feel as if you don't know who you are, a lot of the times we are mother, brother, sister, father, auntie, uncle. We go by our labels. Some people even go by the labels of their job. You ask somebody who they are, the first thing they're going to tell you is the job that they do. Your job, is it you? When you think about it, and if you are not an aunt, a sister, a wife, when you put all those labels aside, a girlfriend, a boyfriend, whatever, when you put the labels aside, who are you? Who is the person that you see standing before you? So if you cannot have a sense of who you are, of identity, if maybe you're always trying to mimic or emulate somebody else, then of course, when you sit down and you have to face yourself when no one else is around, then you would start to feel as if you're worthless. And it is time for it to stop. Sometimes to our physical health. Sometimes, oh my goodness, I think especially women, well, I've recently been learning men are just as much concerned about their image, their physical health, as women are. But women get mean and nasty about themselves, and they just beat down on themselves if they don't look like, you see the magazines, the TVs and stuff, they create this unrealistic idea of what it is women are supposed to look like. We look at TV and you might say, no, I don't think I need to look like that. Subconsciously, if you're always beating down on yourself because you do, you know, oh, I am overweight. If you're overweight and you're uncomfortable and it is not a medical issue that you cannot control, you do have some control about it. Beating down on yourself and telling yourself you're just fat, you're a pig, you're this, you're that, does not help the situation. That is when you start to feel as if you're worthless. You take control, you discipline yourself. That is one of human beings, like their greatest enemy is discipline. You discipline yourself, and slowly but surely, no one says to go on a drastic diet. I can't diet. I can't do the 1,500 calories or whatever it is, I don't know, that people do. I can't do it. My brain worked too hard alone, probably consuming more than that for me to survive on that. But I can discipline myself to healthy eating and to exercise, and slowly but surely you can meet your goals. The point I am trying to make is that we create all these different environment and perceptions that feed our sense of worthlessness. We've been through a breakup and all of a sudden we feel as if there is nobody else is gonna love us, that we are less than. It is as if every breakup that we have, as if it takes away from our value. No. The experiences that you go through enhances your value. As a matter of fact, there is a value so innate in each of us that there isn't anything that can subtract from it unless we decide to willingly give it away to everybody, or we decide to kill it by making sure we create environments that feeds our feelings of worthlessness. So we like to compare ourselves. And in comparing ourselves, like I said, it's that you don't know what's going on with the other person that you're comparing yourself to. You don't know how they're hurting, how horrible they feel, how on the brink of suicide they are. You don't know if they're doing drugs somewhere that nobody know about. You do not know how hard they've worked to get where they are. But you do know you. At least I would hope that you know you. And you cannot just aspire to be somebody else or to compare yourself to somebody else. What about the good things? If there's someone you admire, what about the good things y'all have in common? What about those? Oh my goodness, I get so into the talk that all my stuff start moving all over the place. So we feed our sense of worthlessness and we let other people determine our value. We let other people tell us how valuable we should be. We let people tell us this job is not good enough for you. Why don't you start here instead? When we know we've got a drive and a passion for something else, we let other people tell us you are just good to be a teacher. You know how many times people tell me I should be a lawyer, but I have no interest in law. I might have been good at debating, good at presenting an argument, but I had no interest in law. I would have been miserable as a lawyer. We let people tell us what we are good at instead of taking a look at ourselves. We are so scared of ourselves. We say, I am who I am. I am doing me. And yet we are so scared to face ourselves. We are scared to face the good in us. We are scared to face because it scares us that we might actually succeed. And when we do succeed, it might take us out of our comfort zone and it would take us away from the people and the things we are comfortable with. But yet we want success, but we are scared. We're scared of ourselves. We are scared of the errors that we can make. We are scared actually. So in other words, we are scared of being human. And when you start to get that scared, you start to create a place where you feel worthless, because if you're not doing the very thing that drives your passion, if you're not at least feeding that authentic sense of self that you've got, that truth in who you are, then you're going to always feel as if you're falling short. And whenever we start to feel as if we're falling short, that's when we start to feel a sense of worthlessness setting in. We are all good for something. Don't let anyone determine what that something is for you. If you do not decide what your value is, somebody else is going to decide it for you. And then that is where hurt, misery, and discontent and sense of worthlessness sets in. Excuse me a moment, the hair tends to be hooking up a bit, and it's like, oh gosh. So we are talking about watch the things that you say to yourself. Speak kindly to yourself, the way that you would to somebody that you love. We speak kindly to our loved ones, yet we are hard and mean to ourselves. Speak kindly to yourself. The things that you say is the beginning. It means you're thinking differently. And this is the beginning of counteracting that sense of worthlessness so that you can start your journey to worthy. You got to give it, and when we are talking about being worthy, you've got to find your sense of purpose. A lot of the times we struggle. I love helping people find their purpose. A lot of the times we struggle with knowing, what am I good at? Why am I here? And we think that, and this is where comparison comes in again. If we are not doing the kind of jobs that society gives its approval to as the best jobs, if we are not, like living a certain lifestyle, we start thinking that somehow we are missing the mark, we are falling beneath, and therefore that makes us less than. You could not be more wrong. Each one of us, your purpose might not be to become some great philanthropist. Your purpose might not be to be this great actor. Your purpose might not be to be a president or prime minister. Your purpose might not be that. But let me tell you something about purpose. There are people who have told me that to stay at home and be a mother, that there is something that is wrong. You got to go out there and contribute more. But let me tell you something about the homemakers. They are the substance of our communities and our world in general. Those women who are taking whatever, sacrificing however, and they're raising children and making sure that they're home and they dedicate their life to that, they are no less than women who get up and go out there and are lawyers, doctors, scientists, engineers, whatever. You can, because these are the women that are raising and instilling the values in the lawyers, doctors, engineers, scientists, whomever. So we have a way of classifying things in our society, and we as individuals subscribe to that classification. We take on what the world say is the way to be, the way to think, the way to look, the way to dress, the way to eat, the way to drink. And then what we become are mindless robots, and yet we say we are so unique. So we dress up our robotic self, a little bit differently to everybody else, but beneath it all, we are scared of stepping out of line. We are scared of being different when you know you are called to be different, when you know you feel it bubbling up inside of you. So whatever it is that you find that this is what you truly love, that is what you do. You find your sense of purpose, because in purpose, that's when the worthlessness that you feel all of a sudden start dressing aside, and your worthy start coming, your sense of worthiness start coming up. And therefore, when you live it, when you feel it, you live it, and people, you demand that people treat you that way. And demand on me, you gotta say it. Just by your very presence, they will know it. You want to also acknowledge your accomplishments. I spoke to a young lady not too long ago, and she's telling me, no, she wasn't that young actually, but yeah, she has not accomplished anything in her life. And I went like, say what now? Just like, I have not done anything. I didn't go off to college, and I just had my kids. Yeah, but one of your child is now a pretty good doctor. I mean, their office is always full. I'm like, that had to have been something. I'm like, you raised two great kids. That had to have been something. I said, you are there for family and friends. You are a person that people say they come to when they are really distraught. I said, what do you mean you have accomplished nothing? So you might not be rolling around in $1 million. And maybe you don't have a bunch of degrees across your wall. And maybe you don't have some fancy career, like some people that you know. But sometimes, you see, being a good person, she's a person who gives back continuously of her time to the homeless. And she volunteers like crazy, and people always in and out of her house because it's a place they feel safe, that they can talk, and someone they can trust. What do you mean you have accomplished? All the things she would have done every time she gave a listening ear or gave some advice to someone and they went out and they were successful was also her accomplishment, because she afforded them the space to offload so that they could take up the reins of their life and go out and become better. She was able to deposit little nuggets into their lives so that they could use those nuggets to help build their wealth. You cannot say that you have accomplished nothing. You need to stop assessing your accomplishment according to the standards that other people have set for you or the rest of the world have set for you. Sit down and list them. What have you done with your life? And if you have not done any of the things you're proud of, it is time to start making a list, because that is where your sense of worthiness starts to build. So you're looking at purpose, you're looking at listing your accomplishments, celebrating them. And this thing, gratitude, to be grateful, it will come back over and over. It is something that I emphasize and teach strongly, to be grateful. Because when you start focusing on the positive things in your life, then that sense of I have nothing and I'm good for nothing starts to fade away. It fades. And before you know it, you are on your way to realizing, look, yeah, I've got this good thing going on, and you know what? I appreciate it, and it's good. It means that there is something I am worthy of. And your value, I need to emphasize this so much. Your value lies in who you are, not in what you do. So a lot of the times, I have known people who do really great things, but they're the meanest, nastiest, loneliest people that I met. I'd met millionaires. I remember one gentleman that I met who had come in to our island on his yacht. And he came there for a week. And he was like, I remember we started a conversation because he came into the office where I worked often. And he would come into the office and we'd have this, and he would just stare, and he'd say, you always seem so happy because you're always singing. He said, I'd like to know what that's like. And I said, oh. And so a friendship began, and every year that he came back, he would always look for me. And you know what his biggest thing was? He loved going into Simpson Bay and having an ice cream. A millionaire. He had a helicopter on his yacht. He could have people make ice cream around the clock if he needed. But it was a simple thing that brought him such joy to just walk down the road. Simpson Bay is a place in St. Martin for my people place, and St. Martin is in the Caribbean. Yeah, and he was happy to go get ice cream, and that was it. It wasn't about the money that he had, and I met many, many, many super rich people. Money matters, takes care of your bills, eases those worries of anybody coming get you for the things that you need, but it is not the ultimate. That I have met so many millionaires, and a lot of the times in hanging with them, they are so happy to get away from their other rich friends or the people who have all these demands and expectations on them, just so they could have a freedom of just doing simple things like having ice cream without anybody bugging them about it. The value of who you are does not lie in what you own or it does not lie in what you do. The value of who you are lies in you. What do you do in terms of your job and stuff doesn't matter. How do you give to yourself? How do you give to humanity? And is it bringing you any joy? That is where your value lies. And that's what you want to make sure you pay attention to. What is in you? The person you're afraid to face so many times because you think it's not good enough, usually that's your best self. It is the self that others would want to be like because it's real, and people are drawn to real. Even when they look to criticize it, that's what draws them. So you want to put your real forward, and it might cause you to be some vulnerability there, and you might run the risk of people saying things about you. But when you know that you stand in the truth of who you are, and that brings you happiness and a deep sense of joy, and the people who are most important to you can appreciate it, that's when it starts to reaffirm, yeah, I know I'm worthy, and therefore they are affirming that you're worthy. You have your own gifts. You don't have to take anybody else's. You don't have to pretend anybody else's. When you have been hurt and it feels as if that hurt is destroying you, it cannot and it will not. Why? Because there is something more than the hurt that resides in you. When you start to feel that you're not worthy and you feel as if I shouldn't have good things in my life, you need to step back and ask yourself, do I truly believe that deep down? And if I do believe that, why? Who told me that? Who fed me a story? Some people grow up with so much criticism and so much negativity that they don't even know how to get out from under it. And sometimes it's not that people speak the negativity. If you had a mother who was always saying bad things, negative things about herself, in turn you learn that that's the way you need to be. These things become so deep-seated in us. They just go from here down into our subconsciousness, and then they become our involuntary actions. And I spoke about that before, how we've got our consciousness and our subconsciousness, and our subconsciousness are those involuntary actions like breathing. You don't think about it, but it's the same thing that could happen with thoughts and lessons that we learn and things that we see. When we are growing up, we're seeing all of these things and they are here in the consciousness. Maybe we could choose to not do them, but when they are imprinted from young, they go from subconscious from the conscious to the subconscious before we even could grasp that this is a lesson we learn. And that is why sometimes we need to dig deep to uncover who we truly are, because we grow up with so much negativity. The world re-emphasizes negativity. The world sets these impossible standards for us, and we are killing ourselves trying to live up to other people's standard, trying to be like this person. And my mom said that I should be this, and my mother and somebody else said that you should be that, and your friends are this, and so you keep pushing to live this impossible standard. And every time you push to live somebody else's standard, who you are get pressed down deeper, and soon you can't seem to get a sense anymore, and you are miserable in the process, feeling as if you are not worthy, when there is a gem inside of you just waiting to be released, because that person inside of you who is the real you know just how worthy you are, know what your gifts are, know what your precious stuff are, and they'll keep screaming to you, just let me out for a moment. Just let me into the light so that you will know and you will see. That person who you think is not meeting the standard, that person might be the best standard that you could possibly live, because it is your truth, your true standard. And before I wrap this up, I cannot talk about going from feeling worthless to feeling worthy without mentioning our spiritual values and beliefs. You see, because a lot of the times before anybody told me, my mom used to tell me all the time, I'm beautiful. And then you had so many other people who were saying things like, oh, you got a big forehead, you got a flat nose, oh, you're not so pretty, oh, your sister is prettier than you, or always comparing me to somebody else, a cousin, and it was always a comparison, and my mom really tried to emphasize that you're beautiful, you're your own person, But when you have all these other voices around you, you know, crowding in, that one little voice trying to tell you how beautiful you are, how pretty you are, that little voice gets drowned out. And so you know, as a young girl coming up, I didn't believe I was pretty. I didn't believe I was always being compared to somebody else, and everybody defined me by a broad forehead. You know, and so and the pudgy nose, and so in my mind, those things were not the mark of beauty, because every time somebody saw me, it was always, oh, a big forehead, or what that nose, you know. And so they might not even say it in a like a harsh way, but the mere fact that it is something that they kept repeating made me believe that it was not a mark of beauty. And so there my mom was trying to remind me of how beautiful I am, how awesome I am, how talented I was, and all of that. And I felt like, yeah, mommy is supposed to say that. And all these other people, and we live for other people's opinion, it impacts us. And I teach about that in a course that I have coming up that I know some of you would really, really love, and it'll be awesome. But the point that I'm trying to make is the day I remember when it hit home, that when I read, and I have to talk about spirituality because it's foundational for me and for the people that I work with. When the day that I read that there was this awesome God that my mother was telling me about, and I remember going like, so where are you? I kept praying that over and over and over again. I was like, where are you? If you exist, God, where are you? Because I can't find you. I was a depressed, suicidal teenager. And I told God, you gotta do something that shows me that you exist. And I remember reading, and like, this God of the universe supposed to love me. I'm like, is that even remotely possible? And I said, well, send someone who could accept me for who I am, who no matter what will stick with me. And you know what? He said, I didn't know it then, but I don't know what the chances are that this cousin of mine that I didn't even know that I had would have moved from miles and miles away to the very village I lived in, go to the very church that I go to, and look to, how did we meet? He tried to snatch my book one day when we were at youth meeting. I never even see this dude before. Turned out to be God's representative in my life. Stood with me through thick and thin, and 20 plus years later still stands with me. And every time we bring and demonstrate in very real way the love of God. That was the answer to a suicidal young girl's prayer, that God sent someone, because I thought that, oh, moms are supposed to love you. So my mom saying that was normal, you know. And so here was this person who was an absolute stranger to me. Turned out to be one of my cousins, actually. I didn't know that. Who stood with me through thick and thin. Did not once judge. Oh, would pull me up definitely when I did crap, but did not once judge. And I want to tell somebody, maybe a lot of people might pretend this God thing, because I hear people say it all the time. And maybe we see a lot of leaders, spiritual leaders, living less than we expect of them. But I want to tell somebody about the reality of a God who taught me that I was not worthless, but who revealed to me step by step the value that he had intertwined into me. When I started to understand, when he said that before you were a thought, before you even existed, he said, I knew you. I wired something into you. He said, I stepped outside of creation. He said, from outside of creation, I stepped into creation. He said, and I personally, he said, I put some of me in you, because in the breath, there is the very DNA. If you breathe, there are droplets of you inside of that, your DNA, that are inside your very breath. Somebody needs to hear me today, and I don't mean to preach to you, but I cannot overemphasize that we are also spiritual beings, and that there is a spiritual God who is very concerned, who said that if I, creator of all of this, could look down and say, I want to create this particular person who would be unlike any other person, he said that alone seals your worthiness, worthy to be loved, worthy to live your passions, worthy to live your dreams, worthy to aspire to much and live it, worthy to achieve the best that there is in you. He said, I took my very DNA and I breathed it into you, and I woken the life in you. He said, why is it that everybody else's opinion matters more than mine? Everybody has got their value, and that is not something that you could work for. It is just in you, a gift already given to you by the creator of this universe. And I don't know about other people, but I know for myself that over and over and over again, I have experienced the reality of who God is, and not a distant God who I think don't see. But I talk about a God who is so close that I could smell his essence. I'm talking about not just a tingling feeling on the outside. I'm talking about an innate feeling where I feel the very fibers of who I am come to life in his presence. I'm talking about a God who I now know can laugh, and who has a sense of humor, and who is passionate about humanity. And him stepping into creation twice just for you, when I understood that if there truly had been no other human being on earth, he still would have done that for me. And he said, you are precious in my eyesight. That's why our works are like filthy rags, because it is not what we do that brings value to who we are. It is what God has wired into you that highlights your value. So this isn't about what other people may or may not say about God. This is about what you can know about God. And this isn't just a talk. This is such an experience that your life would be revolutionized. This is an experience where you think that you know, and all of a sudden you don't know half that you know, but then you begin to open up and he begins to fill. This is a friendship. It is when you say, you think a thought and it is done before you could even speak it, because you are so in line with the will of God. That is not a dream, that is a reality. So we are talking from worthless to worthy. You've got a lot going for you. You just need to pay attention to it, and stop paying attention to what everybody else have told you, and to all the things wired into you that are negative and keeping you in a place where you feel unworthy. Remember, watch what you say to yourself. Those are the things that feed unworthiness, when you're all harsh and negative and critical about yourself. Watch what other people are labeling you as, and if you are living according to those labels. Don't be defined by your experiences, because your experiences are internal and they hurt. They are external and they hurt internally, but who you are internally is the essence of who you are. So you determine if those experiences will change who you are. You were wired before the foundation of this world with an innate value. You've got to connect to your spiritual creator to reveal and unleash that. And this ain't no pretending. This ain't about going to church. This ain't about saying, if I read the Bible, then God must do this for me. It ain't just about pretending to be kind. It's actually about a transformation from the inside, so it's exhibited on the outside. It's about a spiritual revolution that is exhibited in a physical sense. It is about a God who breathed his very value into you, and stirred your life and said, go. It is not about whether you were born in poverty or born to riches. Your worth is not determined by any of that. Because when the ultimate God decides that I have breathed my wealth into you, then you are valuable. He took that breath of godlikeness and breathed life into your physical form. Live it. And stop making excuses. We are scared. We are even scared of God. We go to church, yeah, but we don't want to get close. Oh, I had my days of that. I was scared of whatever he did, because whenever God showed up, my life got turned upside down. Lost control of everything. But it was the best loss of control that I've ever had. And so you want to connect to your spiritual creator, because it activates your innate worth. And when that innate worth is activated, everything else starts to come in line. Doesn't mean there won't be challenges. Don't mean it won't get rough. But you will know where your value lies. And so that's what I wanted to share with us today, about how we go and how we transform that perception of unworthiness to our place of worthiness. It is not the value of a man or woman is not in what you do, but in who you are. And if you do not know who you are, then now you know where you need to begin. Thank you so much for joining me on another session of Broken to Beautiful. We are here Monday to Fridays at 12 noon Eastern. I definitely enjoy the interaction with you guys. You know, Buffy, thanks for joining us. Sandra, Echoes, you guys, thanks so much for joining us. There is a teaching that is coming on this, but I have something. We wrap up next Tuesday. Yeah, we do. And I've got something that, you know, for you guys as a gift for being here. And then if you want more, I've got more for you. So thank you so much for joining me. Remember, you can follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram, follow me on YouTube, join our group Unleashed. We celebrate it's like Unleashed is like a little family. We celebrate with you, we mourn with you, we support, we help to grow with you in the group. You know, so it's really a different kind of space, unique space that happens there. Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, I'm there. Look for me. And I am just excited to be associated with you guys. Remember, we weren't created to live broken. So it's time for you to step into it. Have yourself a good one.